Tomorrow is going to be an easier day because we've only got 400 miles to cover instead of 600. The next section is going to be a real test of Frog Pilot and the commerce system. There is quite a sizable parking fee. I think it's like $50. If I had to replace the remote control battery in my key fob because apparently it was flat. This is the first time ever that I have turned up at one of these units with a payment reader and just plugged in and started charging. Hello everybody, it is Thursday morning. It is about 10:30 in the morning. We have been on the road since 7:30 and yes, I owe you an apology. We didn't start our return trip videography until, well, a couple of 100 miles into the trip, and there's a very good reason for that, namely that, well, we've been busy on the road. First off, I woke up this morning feeling like death warmed up. Vi woke up this morning feeling like death warmed up, and neither of us were particularly wanting to do much in the way of filming. And instead of going to the gym and then leaving, I literally got out of bed, had a shower, packed, and left. I've now had some coffee and I've had some food and I'm feeling so much better. So let's talk about what we learned at the Bolt event yesterday and how the trip is going. So as you can see, we are now into what my wife lovingly calls Hypnosis Highway, because it's that bit of I-5 between LA and Sacramento that is just completely flat. You're just going through loads and loads of farmland areas, the occasional city or town, and you're just going in a straight line. But we did also get to spy the all-new 2026 Kia Telluride doing tow testing on the GrapeVine. So the last hour has been spent editing that video and uploading it and turning on the Wi-Fi in this car so that we could upload it. So hopefully someone will give us some money for it. That's my hope. I'm a very hopeful person. It's not going to happen, but I'm a very hopeful person. So, into the trip. The car was fully charged when we left the hotel this morning. Had a bit of unpleasantness with the valet, which I'm not going to go into. And we haven't charged yet. The car, I think, was at 98% when we left. We now have 29 miles to go for our first stop, and we have 66 miles of range remaining, so we're going to be fine. There's been no issues. The commerce system has behaved itself really well. Everything in the car is functioning as it should. We haven't had the silly charge port door popping open problem that we had on the way down, at least so far. And getting behind the wheel of this Bolt after driving the prototype 2027 Bolt EV yesterday, there's a couple of things that I've noticed. First of all, the new Bolt, it is slightly larger. And of course, there is now that storage area for the passenger that is open, which is really nice. You also have a glove box, and you have the cup holder area up front, which is modular and can be modified to your tastes and desires. I like the fact that there's that open space that we've got in this Bolt as well. The new dashboard layout is quite nice. The screens are bigger. They are more customizable. I am a little frustrated that, like the rest of GM's EV lineup, there's no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. You're going to have to use the Google-based system. That's a very big negative, as far as I'm concerned, against GM for that, because I want to use a system that I'm familiar with, and obviously with Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you can set up the dashboard that you want in your vehicle. And if you have multiple vehicles, or maybe you have a motorbike with a CarPlay device, you can just keep your phone on your person, and whenever you start up whichever vehicle, it automatically connects. You don't have to think about it, and you're ready to go. And of course, while the GM system with the Google Automotive allows you to have that same customization. You're going to have to make sure that you have all the apps that you want and you've downloaded them. Even if they're on your phone, you're then going to have to download them onto your car, which I'm not super happy about. In terms of the paddle, and I don't think I mentioned it in the first sneak peek look video. They've got rid of the paddle on the steering wheel because the new Bolt has better regen on demand. It has a more customizable throttle response. GM says that everything can be tweaked through the settings on the touchscreen display, like the rest of the kind of the new generation of EVs on the market. But I really do like having the regen paddle. It's always been a thing that I've liked, and I missed it. I think I did miss it. And at the time I was like, okay, maybe I don't need it. But now going back, I'm like, no, I really like having this paddle because it means I can control how quickly I slow down in a little bit more of a granular way. And having the on-demand pedal means that if I need a little bit of extra braking, I can just whack that paddle in and slow down. Of course, I also tend to keep the paddle held in because I want the maximum regen braking. So you could argue even that just using the most extreme regen setting on that car would serve the same purpose. And you'd not be wrong if that was your outlook on it. But the other thing that I was kind of very impressed with was that GM didn't try to change things that were already good. So we've still got the rear wiper on the new Bolt. That's exactly the same. I'm not a huge fan of the gear shifter being on the column. I do prefer having a physical control down in the center console. But from a space saving point of view, it does make sense because you've got more space for cups, you've got more space for holding things. I mean, if you look down right now, we've got a lot of clutter here that the new Bolt would be able to more appropriately accommodate. But of course, it does mean that all of your other non-gear and direction related controls are going to be on the left rather than on the right, which is what we have here. We've got all the wipers on the right here. The new Bolt's going to have all of that on this left-hand stalk. And so that will be a little bit of a learning curve for those who are new to it. I was very happy to see that the new Bolt has the same sort of setup here in terms of window controls and also mirror controls. I don't like, as you probably picked up from my review of the Volvo EX30, I don't like going, however many layers deep in the touchscreen display just to adjust my steering wheel and my mirrors. And GM has listened. And I think it's primarily because it's using the parts bin it's got for its other vehicles. And unless I'm very wrong, I don't think there are any vehicles that allow you to control, that require you to use the touchscreen display to control the steering and the steering wheel and the mirror setup. So that's just a GM thing, I think. In terms of adjustability in the new Bolt, the telescoping of the steering wheel and the tilt is manual, which means fewer motors, which means lower build cost, which means less likely to go wrong. You do have a fully electronically adjustable driver's seat with all of the lumbar controls that you would expect. I believe the passenger seat is manual, and I think in the entry-level version of the Bolt it will be a manually adjustable seat. But it was a comfortable enough seat. I think it was slightly wider than the seat I'm currently in. Pretty close, I think, to the Bolt EUV seat. So if you like the Bolt EUV seat, you will probably like the seat in the new Bolt. Of course, You also have access to all of the OnStar capabilities that GM has used for years. In fact, I had to press the OnStar button earlier today to call OnStar to turn the Wi-Fi on in this car. That's still supported. But one of the new features that the new Bolt EV gets, which obviously this car doesn't, is it gets the capability to work with GM's the GM Energy products, and that includes the vehicle-to-home backup system. And this is impressive. So the new Bolt is capable of bidirectional charging, and it can feed up to 10 kilowatts from its battery to your home to power your home in a power cut. Obviously, you'd have to buy the GM Home Energy solution or any other J1772- whatever the code is, I've forgotten, compatible vehicle-to-grid or vehicle-to-home system, and you could power your home from your Bolt EV in a power cut. And that is big, because as far as I am aware, it is the smallest and the cheapest EV on the market that will allow you to use vehicle-to-grid, and that will come with vehicle-to-grid or vehicle-to-home out of the box, as long as you have a compatible system attached to your home. That is big. It's all done through NACS. The system is compatible with NACS. You just use a NACS to CCS adapter, because GM's home system uses a CCS connector, but it will be fully compatible with NACS. We got that confirmed at the event. And obviously you also have 150 kilowatt fast charging, which is a lot faster than the 55 kilowatts that we're getting out of this. And interestingly, coming back today, I think it's fair to say that both I and Vi are both happy to be heading back to Portland. Neither of us like being away from our respective loved ones and our respective animals. And I'm looking forward to getting back to Portland. I know Vi is, but Vi said this morning, road tripping in the Bolt, it's starting to drag a little bit, not because the car is necessarily uncomfortable, but because this is a compact car and it is small and we have a lot of stuff in here. And Vi's been trying to juggle a computer and a camera and another camera right here, and it doesn't have a lot of space for the front seat passenger. If it's just you, it's fine. I think if you are good friends with the people you're in the car with, it's okay. But it's certainly not a plush full-size SUV or pickup truck, and the road tripping experience in a vehicle that large is very different. But the fact that we've been driving now for 3.5 hours, we haven't needed to stop, nearly 200 miles of driving, is kind of testament to how well made and how well built this Bolt was the first time around. And while I think the new Bolt is going to be a great way for new owners to get behind the wheel and experience a small, practical, everyday EV, I think for existing owners who just use their Bolt for, daily commutes and around town, I don't think the new Bolt is going to be necessarily an upgrade that you will feel compelled to make. But if you like this car, you like how it's laid out, and you want to do long distance road tripping, the new Bolt with the lithium iron phosphate battery pack, 65 kilowatt hours, slightly more powerful motor, and the vehicle to grid capabilities that I noted, that's going to be something that will make you want to upgrade, especially if you like doing longer distance trips. And so I think it's very much a horses for courses. If you need power backup, if you need that longer, that faster quick charge capability on long distance road trips, you're absolutely going to want to put your name down if you are an existing Bolt owner or you've been thinking about getting a Bolt sized car. If you are a current EV owner like I am, and you like your Bolt EV, and you've maybe done what I've done and put some tweaks, like changed a few of the things, added wireless CarPlay, added semi-autonomous driver assistance features, then I think the case for upgrading is going to be a little bit tougher, initially at least, with this limited production run. Reading between the lines, what I think is going to happen is that GM will start making this as a limited production. It will get absolutely overwhelmed with orders. I predict it will sell out very, very quickly. And then it will then start making them again. At least that's what I hope, because that was a really grand gesture. We're bringing the Bolt back because people wanted us to then turn around and say, but we're only making a few of them, is not a good look. So I hope that limited production is in fact, 5,000-10,000 a year, no less than that, maybe more, and that after a year GM goes, actually, yeah, we're going to now make as many as people want to buy. Anyway, we are 15 miles away from our charging stop, so we will see you after we've had a wee stop and a charge. We are midway between our first and second charging spot. We actually stopped at the first charging spot and ended up recording 10, which is why I didn't record anything there. But I did want to show you that we're here outside a Freewire charging station. They don't currently have their credit card readers working, which means this doesn't work. Neither do these charging stations or these ones. These ones appear to be working, but they charge a $2 or $3 connection fee and then $1 for every kilowatt hour of electricity. That's right, $1 for every kilowatt hour of electricity. Who is gonna stop here to spend $1 per kilowatt hour of electricity? Vaya's off getting some B-roll because you don't have any B-roll of these Freewire stations. Now, the Freewire stations are special because they have batteries inside them, so they allow EV chargers to be built in locations where there might not be excess grid capacity for fast charging. And luckily, as we had it, we have like 80 miles in the car still, so we don't need to stop. We actually stopped because this decided that it was open even when it wasn't. And so we were coming to an off-ramp and I'm like, oh, there's a charger here, there's some chargers here. There's also a Rivian charging network here, at least according to a better route planner. But I think it must be a future a future site for a Rivian Adventure Network, because it's supposed to be just by that building there, but it isn't. It doesn't exist yet. I drove around the parking lot like 3 or 4 times trying to find it, and I'm giving up because I've got 80 something miles left in terms of range. We can go to our next planned stop and not worry about it. But I wanted to show you that these Freewire stations do appear to still be around. This one is actually branded Freewire. This one is branded Chevron EV Charging. And then these are basically branded as Red E. And you tap the button to start and it tells you that these are both offline. You have to use your RFID card or tap to play, but these tap to pay units are notorious and they don't work. So broken, 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 broken. And then over here, let's show you a vandalized Freewire unit, because this is what they look like inside. So you've got, you know, your standard power electronics here. So this unit here is a transformer that takes 230 volts and spits it out. But these are the big cables that people are coming in and stealing. And inside here, well, you can see this. It has a battery stack, 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 battery stack. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these battery sacks that slide out, I believe, on rails. But if you look inside, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 modules per rail. And those modules, if you look carefully, might look familiar because they are in fact Nissan Leaf modules by AESC. They are the very same modules that I am putting in my Vectrex VX1. So there's a lot of battery modules here, just sitting out in the open. I don't know if these are connected. I'm looking right now. It looks like they're still connected up, even though it's been vandalized. Someone's ripped out some cabling here. No one's gone for the cables, which I find a bit bizarre, but the batteries still look okay. Massive switch down there and lots of relays and obviously breakers. But I don't know why this is sitting here and why it's considered broken. It looks like it's been replaced by maybe one of these other units. I would postulate that this one was originally where that Chevron EV charging unit now is, and it's just been left here. I don't know if it's scrap or what, but there's a lot of modules in there, a lot of Nissan Leaf modules. And that is that's what the modules in my Vectrex were used for before going in my Vectrex. So I have some of those modules sitting in my house right now, and they're going to be ready. And I know inside there's going to be those lovely BMS board units. And it seems a shame that there are, you know, these charging stations here and they're just not working, either because of payment issues or because of something else. And look, battery-backed charging stations are a really great idea because they help people put charging infrastructure in where the grid might not be ready. And you're not going to get people stopping and charging here all the time. But it's great if the weather is not so good. And you can see the footprint of these units, not necessarily much bigger than they would be for a conventional cabinet. They've got some extra space underneath for cooling, but these are all battery backed. I'm not sure about these two on the end here, but definitely this one and definitely this one have actually got Nissan Leaf modules in them, even though those modules have never been in a Nissan Leaf. But you know, I thought it was kind of cool and I thought I would share. So let's hit the road and I'll either see you at the next charging stop, our final charging stop of the day, or I will see you back on the road a little bit later. We are 50 miles away from our hotel in Sacramento, and we haven't got a whole lot of B-roll of our trip, and that's for a very good reason. First of all, this morning we had the spy shots that we dealt with. We spotted what we think is a Kia Telluride driving up the GrapeVine, so we were very busy working on that. Then we stopped at that location with all the broken chargers and filmed there. And now look what we've got in the traffic on our way to Sacramento. That is a beautiful Honda Civic, but it's not just a Honda Civic. That is a converted electric Honda Civic. Just look at it. It's been bombing along in traffic, maxing out at about like 70, 75, living its best freaking life. And honestly, that's got me more excited than the Bolt EV reveal. And I'm just going to say it. that is where electric cars are for me. Conversions are so important to help internal combustion cars live a new life without burning any fossil fuels, helping people breathe new life into older cars and keeping them on the road and out of scrapyards is so freaking important. And watching this little car just bomb along, living its best life. I mean, what is that, a 92 Civic? Maybe late 80s, early 90s. And it's just the best. And the driver's got his t-shirt up at the window to block out the sun. And it is just humming along, having its best little life. And I am totally there for this because, well, that's why I do what I do, to see people being ingenious and making use of what the resources they have and building something that suits their needs, that suits their pocket, that makes their lives better. And if we all do that every day and we find new ways of making and crafting and being and living, it just makes me so freaking happy. And, you know, I know a lot of people say, oh, you're always really mean about these high-end electric cars, the really expensive ones. But at the end of the day, it's about removing fossil fuels, getting them off the road, getting people into public transit, getting people to cycle, getting people to find better ways of doing things. And I know I'm riffing now, but I'm very, very happy. If you're watching this and you recognize the owner of that beautiful white, I'm going to say early 90s Civic, please get in touch, because we have probably shot about 10, maybe 15 minutes of their car driving down the road, and we will gladly give it to them. Maybe we'll even turn it into a little montage when we have a few moments spare. But if you are watching this and you are that owner, or someone has told you that you were featured in this video, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you have made what has generally been quite a tedious drive, because that stretch of road is never fun, into a much more enjoyable one. And yes, people have been driving like jerks in Southern California. I've been beeped at more times than I care to remember, even though I've been driving at the speed limit, very often slightly over it. And people cut you up, they don't check their mirrors and all of that stuff. But that little Civic, just bombing along, doing its own thing. I just love it. Let's talk a bit about what's been going on in terms of our fuel economy and how the car's doing. So, our average fuel economy over 1,328 miles currently sits at 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour. I think a better route planner has a slightly different efficiency. I think a better route planner has about 3.7, 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour. Now, the difference for that is that I think the Bolt takes into consideration any energy you use while the car is sat and powered on, so things like air conditioning. Whereas I think a better route planner only calculates your fuel economy when you're actually driving. And most of the time when we've been stopped, we've kept the car running while we've charged it. So that's why this is slightly different. And while I'm giving you kind of a bit of a roundup to the end of this particular day of travel, I want to let you know how the tyres behaved, because we took the Nokian Remedy tyres that are on this car and took them all the way down to LA. Obviously it was very hot there, hotter than it was for most of the time this summer in Portland. And the tyres handled the heat very, very well. Now, the Remedy tyres are designed to give EV owners the ability to have tyres that are winter weather rated. So they've got the 3-peak snowflake symbol. but can also be used in warmer climates. And obviously that's exactly where these tyres have been used. And they've been great. I haven't had any worries about traction or anything like that. Obviously the weather has been very pleasant. We haven't had any rain on our trip. So it's been nice, dry, pretty warm conditions. I think outside right now it's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is what, 20 something degrees Celsius, maybe 25 degrees Celsius. So it's kind of what I would call normal Portland summer weather, even though we're now in October. And talking to people who live in this area, the heat that they are experiencing right now is not normal for this time of year. Normally it's a lot colder. Obviously when we left LA this morning, it was much colder and it was no issues with the changing in temperature. The tyre pressures have been very consistent. There hasn't been a whole amount of deviation between colder and warmer sections in terms of pressure differences. So I'm very happy. The car, unfortunately, has continued to bug us with the charge port ajar message when we go over really, really big bumps on the I-5. And I'm going to blame the road surface and the fact that the catch on my bolt is probably getting a bit old. So if you go over a bump, it's just enough of a jolt to cause the door to pop open. We've had to stop a couple of times to fix that. But the rest of the car has been fine. While I started talking to you, Comet actually rebooted itself. I don't know why. I haven't seen it do that in a really long time. That's pretty much it for today. We've charged at 2 different places. Our first charging stop was an Electrify America, that nice one that I told you about earlier with the canopy and everything. And then the second charging stop, we actually stopped at a charge point, which turned out to be our most expensive charging session on the entire trip, which is kind of ironic considering I wouldn't charge at the place that charged $1 per kilowatt hour. I think the charge point we stopped at was like 60 cents per kilowatt hour, which is a bit on the pricey side. But at least the next stop, for us at least, the next place we're going to be charging will be completely free because it's going to be complimentary. Thank you, GM. It comes with the hotel room. Or rather, it's going to be billed to our hotel room. Good morning, everybody. It is our final day of our long distance road trip, all the way from Portland, Oregon to LA, California, and back again. This is going to be a long day. So we finished yesterday. We drove from LA to Sacramento. We stayed in an amazing hotel in Sacramento. We arrived, I think, probably about 5. And went to our rooms. We offloaded some footage. Vi worked all evening making the Chevrolet Bolt event video look amazing. At one point I snuck off to the gym and did my gym workout for the day, and then had an evening meal. Woke up this morning just before 5, went to the gym again, had a shower, jumped in the car, and we were on the road by 6:20, 6:30. We are currently 89 miles away from our first charging spot, but we've seen some really glorious skies this morning. It was dark when we left. It is now light. The sun is coming up over the horizon. It's a glorious reddish hue. I've heard that back in Portland it is raining. Last night we got some lightning alerts for our area, and I have a Tempest weather station hooked up to my Home Assistant setup at the house, and I kept getting lightning detected alerts, which was very welcome because we haven't had enough rain, and there's been no rain on our trip. And I'm kind of excited that maybe we're going to see some rain on the last bit of our drive, because we are desperately in need of it. But once we get past these trucks, if you look to my right, you'll see some really glorious clouds in the sky. Look at those. Those are pretty as heck. Obviously, they're catching the sunrise. And it's nice to be heading towards Northern California again. I don't know if I'd want to live here, but it's pretty to pass through. And when you hit, when you get to Shasta and you go over the pass at Shasta and then you head towards Medford and Ashland and you go over the passes there, it feels like, yep, back in Oregon. And it's a great way of welcoming you to Oregon. It's just that very distinctive border. And it's the same actually going into Washington State. There's a very definitive border when you go into Washington State. Obviously, that one is a river. But I'm glad we're heading home. I've been thinking some more about the new Bolt EV, and one of the things that I said this morning to Vi was the software that we're using on this trip, A Better Route Planner right here. You're not going to be able to maybe so easily get custom software. I mean, if you look at my software that I've got on my phone, I've got Home Assistant, Flow, the Electrify America app. I don't know why I've got a Domino's app on here. It must have been my wife. I didn't put the Target app on there. But all of these other apps are fairly, easy to install on my phone. And then when I get in a car, or I get on my motorbike, or I get in my truck, I have the same layout all the way. And just to clarify, my wife and I share an iCloud account for installing apps. So if one of us installs an app on our phone, the other one gets it. So that's why I'm like, I don't remember installing that. We also shared like a family account with our kids for a while. So our kids very often added apps and they ended up being installed. But it's not going to be as easy to customize your experience with a mandatory Google experience. Sure, you'll be able to go to the Google Play Store and download apps, but they will have to be apps that are sanctioned by Google for use in your vehicle. And I don't know if GM can sanction, can decide what apps you can or can't install. But I think that whole process is going to be, in fact, I know it's going to be more cumbersome than just having your phone in your pocket and just doing it like this. I really am disappointed that CarPlay and Android Auto are going away on some models of EV, and I think the automakers that do that are making a grave mistake. I'm sure something monetization, but I would just rather that they didn't. I've also been thinking a little bit about the customizable digital display of the new Bolt. While I think a lot of people will like it, I really do like the very basic information that I get in this car. I've got my range, I've got a low prediction based on, if I drive it like I stole it, I can get 107 miles right now. If I drive it like a saint, I'll get 154 miles. And if I drive it like I've been driving it, I'll get 131 miles. I've got my tire pressures here. I've got my average speed. I've got my trip timer at 27 hours and 59 minutes of driving and charging combined thus far, which isn't too bad. My average speed, I can probably tell you that, is 48 miles per hour, so it's dropped a little bit because of those extra long charging stops we did yesterday. But, I like being able to just simply scroll through. I'm not necessarily a fan of the scroll wheel setup, but I'm nitpicking, right? At the end of the day, I am nitpicking. I think for most people, the new infotainment system will be preferable. Vi noted that the current or the previous generation Bolt infotainment system, both on the 2017s and on the refreshed ones, until they stopped making them in 24, was not great. It was not a great setup. And so the new touchscreen display setup for the Bolt might, for some people, be an improvement. But since I leave it on my CarPlay screen all the time, that's really all I care about, is does it work with CarPlay? I don't know if, I don't know the details for Super Cruise at this point, in terms of cost, subscription, but I think we can all infer that it will be a subscription-based service because that's standard for the GM family of EVs these days. And again, I didn't have to pay a subscription for Comma or for Cruise. I can choose to pay to have a data plan for Cruise, but I don't. I use whatever is baked in by stopping up Wi-Fi, and at home I have Wi-Fi access and all that. And I don't really need mobile data access for this, although this car has a Wi-Fi access point right now, so we could use that. But I didn't have to pay a subscription. I had to pay a one-off fee, about $1,000 for the unit. Now I own it. And I can download software and just install it, and it works. And I don't have to worry about a subscription-based model, which means my TCO, my total cost of ownership of this Bolt EV, is very, very low. And, that's one of the reasons why we decided to make the trip down to LA in this Bolt. We were like, okay, we're going to see the new Bolt. Is it practical to drive the original Bolt, an 8-year-old Bolt with now 136,000 miles on the clock? We actually rolled over 136,000 miles last night. Is it capable of doing that trip? How long does it take? What's the charging experience like? Are there any bugs or concerns? Yeah, the suspension's a little tired. The seats are maybe not as plush as they could be because they're old. But I found this trip pleasant. I haven't found this trip uncomfortable. I haven't found this trip tiresome or bothersome. And, having to stop for 30 minutes every couple of hours has actually been good, both for my physical health, because it's got me up and moving around, but also for my exhaustion levels. If I get up every couple of hours and do something different, I'm more likely to be attentive for the time that I am required to be driving. And so this trip has been everything that I hoped it would be. Yesterday was an amazing day. We saw some amazing stuff. I'm hoping we're going to replicate that today on the trip north. And for those who are interested, our current total trip distance is 1,441 miles. I didn't intentionally choose that palindromic number, but that was great, wasn't it? I love nerdy math stuff. And we've averaged 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour according to the car. I told you yesterday, the car gives a lower number than a better route planner. A better route planner, I think, says 3.67 miles per kilowatt hour because it's only logging the amount of driving, and the car logs the amount of time the car is on. So it's taking into consideration the energy that we used for things like running the air conditioning while charging. But I haven't had breakfast yet. It's 7:30 in the morning. We've got 78 miles to go before our first charging stop. So I'm going to go and enjoy the sunrise. But check out those mountains over there. Don't they look amazing? Absolutely beautiful. We are on our second leg of our final day, and I'm smiling because we're back in the mountains. Gandalf, it is really beautiful to be back in Northern California. We're heading towards the border with Oregon. I think we've probably got we're less than 100 miles from the border. And the air is cleaner, the temperature is cooler, and we stopped for our first charge of the day at a Tesla supercharger in Cottonwood, California. Now, yes, I know, Tesla supercharger. Yesterday we didn't use any Tesla superchargers. When you hit Northern California and then you kind of go into kind of Southern Oregon, Tesla superchargers tend to dominate. Our next stop is going to be a Rivian Adventure Network, that said. And I want to pick up something here about Cottonwood. In fact, two things. First of all, if you are driving on the I-5 and you go through Cottonwood and you need to stop and it's morning and you want coffee, stop in Cottonwood. There is a fantastic indie coffee shop that does very, very good coffee. I got them to make me a coffee in my Patreon mug that I normally take on trips. Beautiful coffee, very, very nicely made. Good food as well. I had a breakfast sandwich that they did. They had cakes and pastries, and the actual space itself was glorious. They had some wonderful, glorious artwork on the walls, lots of diversity and representation, and it was just a really nice place, and everyone was really friendly. So thank you to the name of that coffee shop. I can't remember. I think it was Coffee and Something. It was the Bean and Something. That's right. It was the Bean and Something. But it was a really glorious stop, and I enjoyed it. We're going through some dead trees here, which always makes me sad. This part of Northern California was very heavily affected by forest fires a couple of years ago. These trees are obviously okay, but when we go around the corner, I think there's more forest fire damage. In fact, there is on the top of that hill there as well. And you can see how the area has been affected by forest fires and forest damage. As I say, I will see if I can point some more out as we go through. I know when we came up, we went through, there's some right here, look. You can see on the right side here, some of these trees have been destroyed in that little valley there by fire. And you go through parts of the area, and this right here as well, just trees that have been absolutely destroyed by fire over the last couple of years. And it's really sad to see how much of Northern California has been affected by wildfires in the time that I've lived in the US. And hopefully moving forwards we can get some politicians and leadership to actually lead on climate change instead of pretending that it doesn't exist. And we're going over a lake that has pretty low water level. I've seen it higher. This is not as low as I have seen it, but it affects us all, right? This whole climate change affects us all. So back to Cottonwood. The second thing I wanted to tell you about Cottonwood is there were, I think, 3 superchargers out of action, and I get very tired of Tesla owners and Tesla fanboys and fangirls and fan non-binary peeps telling us in the comments that Tesla's charging network never has any problems. Because, you know, in the time that I have been driving EVs, I've used plenty of Tesla superchargers, both when I've been behind the wheel of a Tesla, but also more recently when we've had to use a Tesla supercharger because there's been no alternative. And I would say that, you do sometimes encounter broken or down stations. And I just want to acknowledge that technology will fail and does fail. The difference very often is that Tesla tends to be pretty good about getting those units back up and running in a decent amount of time. But they suffer failures just like every other charging network. And I think we have to look to other charging networks to improve their uptime and decrease the amount of time that charging stations are offline because of failures. You know, where we stopped yesterday in kind of central Southern California, I don't think those charging stations have been operational for a really long time. I checked with a friend of mine the other day, and it's been about a year since Freewire went bust. And I assume those charging stations will just be ripped out when they stop working, which is probably why that other unit was sat at the side of the parking spaces there. Anyway, the car is doing well. We've now done 1,560 miles, so 1,560 miles. We are averaging 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour still. And according to a better route planner, we're going to get home about 7 o'clock tonight. Now it's going to give me alternatives, which is not what I wanted. So it's going to take us to the, there we go, I've got the right screen now. We're going to get home at 6:50. I would be very surprised if we actually get home at 6:50. I think it's probably going to be closer to 7:20 because traffic around Portland is always worse on a Friday. But we have just passed 395 miles remaining before we hit Portland. So we are very much on the home straight. And we're leaving the National Recreational Area for Shasta Lake. But we'll see Mount Shasta very shortly. I don't know if the mountain is out today because the clouds are pretty low, but if it is, we'll make sure we get some footage. We are back on the road. We just stopped in Shasta at the Rivian Adventure Network location there. And what a great place. Beautiful among the trees. It's right next to a Best Western Plus location, which has like little hotel, motel style rooms. There were, I think, 6 or 7 Rivian Adventure Network charging stations, fast chargers, and then there were a couple of slower destination chargers there. Place to walk your dogs, a little picnic table, very clean restrooms, and some stores not too far away if you wanted to have a short walk. And we charged up, I think we probably were there for about 25 minutes. We got up to about 50, I think it was 57% state of charge, and now we're back on our way. And there is a glorious rainbow ahead of us. It has started raining as I thought it would. The temperature has dropped outside, and it's really lovely. It is really lovely to be back in Northern California. I know I keep saying that, but it is true. But something happened while we were there that reinforced something that I think we all forget about. And that is that when you are new to EV ownership, when you are new to charging, sometimes navigating even reliable charging apps can be a bother. While we were there, a woman pulled up in a Bolt EUV, and I noticed she was having an issue getting the charging to work. So I ran over and checked, and she was getting the tap to pay to work, but then she couldn't initiate the charging session for some reason. So I said, well, I do it by downloading the app, the Rivian app, and then going through the Rivian app. But I think for some reason it wasn't going to work for her. And in the end, she just gave up and said, oh, there's another charger down the road. I'll go and use that. And it really, first of all, if you're watching this, it was lovely to meet you. Hello. I hope we didn't scare you by saying hello. Second, it kind of reinforces how, if you're new to EV charging and you don't know the tips and the tricks, like I talked about a couple of days ago, for the Rivian Adventure Network, I've discovered that I have to do the little bolt lift to get the charge connector to properly turn on and start charging. If you don't know things like that, if you're not familiar with how most charging networks operate, long distance trips can still be overwhelming. And I think moving forwards, we've got to see universal access for everybody, regardless of the type of vehicle that they own. A big fear of mine, and it is a big fear, is that as plug and charge becomes more commonplace, we're going to see more people buying EVs that have plug and charge capabilities, and automakers are now effectively upselling plug and charge with their vehicles to encourage people to go through whatever the car charging network is. So if it's a Ford, through Ford's charging network or GM's charging network, it's not actually a network. They're just acting as an intermediary. And of course, they probably take a little bit of a cut. Maybe they might negotiate a lower overall price for you. So the price that you pay might end up being round about the same as if you just rocked up and paid with the native app. And while plug and charge is convenient, you can just plug in and the car automatically authenticates and off you go. If you own an older EV, or maybe you have an EV with an AX adapter, or maybe you have an EV with a CHAdeMO adapter, you've maybe bought one of those CCS to CHAdeMO adapters. If there's not a easily understood, 100% reliable way of paying for your electricity when you pull up at a charging station, you are going to have significant apprehension about making longer distance trips. Now, this trip, I've had no range anxiety, I've had no qualms about charging, I have felt extremely confident about the reliability of the networks, I felt really very positive about the whole experience. Yesterday, on Thursday, we stopped at that location and we didn't need to charge. So while I did encounter one location with a bank of chargers, some of which seemed to work and some of which were off, and the ones that seemed to work were priced at, $1 a kilowatt hour, plus what was it, $3 connection fee, and then there was another fee tacked on as well. And I went, that's just too expensive, I'm not going to charge there. But that's a very different landscape to just a few years ago, where every charging station you stopped at needed to be 100% reliable, and it was the only game in town. So EV charging has become much less stressful if you understand the process of charging. You understand, how do I connect, how do I go through payment and all of that. If you've grown up around EVs or you've been driving EVs for a long time, it becomes second nature. I know which networks I need to use what things for. If I pull up at a charge point, I whip out my phone and I use my virtual card that's stored on my Apple iPhone for the charge point network. Same for Electrify America. If I turn up at a Tesla charging station, I know when I have to get the Tesla app out, or the Rivian one, I have to get the Rivian one out. And like that glorious one in Wairika or Reka or whatever the name of the place is, I'm still not 100% sure. That one was the best because I just used my mobile phone, or my watch in my case, just to tap to pay. And that's what this woman was trying to do with the Rivian charge network. So I don't know what the problem was with her account or why it didn't work, but she gave up after 4 attempts, and honestly I couldn't blame her. She had enough range, I think, just to make it to her next charging stop, but she said she was on her way to Eugene, which is a long distance trip and she's only about halfway through that trip. So unless the charging industry can get together and make the process of charging more homogeneous, then we're going to continue to have an image problem among people, especially if they are new to EVs. Anyway, it is glorious up here. We are, less than 40 miles from the border with Oregon. So hopefully we'll cross over into Oregon before lunchtime. Onwards. This is our final charging stop of the day, and it's also the final charging stop on this epic trip, taking a 2017 Chevrolet Bolt EV with well over 100,000 miles on the clock. As you may have remembered from earlier on, 136,000 miles was the last big milestone we passed, all the way from Portland, Oregon down to LA and back. That's nearly 2,000 miles for the return trip. And we're finishing at what I think is probably the weirdest charging site that I have seen on our journey. Yes, this is a Tesla supercharger site. It's right by the I-5. There are 8 Tesla superchargers, but there's really nothing else. This obviously used to be a gas station. It is no more. There's no real facilities here to speak of, except for a single stall bathroom. And if you need to use it, there's a key code that you must put in. It's hidden in the Tesla app for this site. You kind of go and find the information and it gives you the access code for the bathroom. The bathroom is okay. The toilet wobbles. It's kind of what you'd expect in the middle of nowhere at an abandoned gas station. But the important thing is the Bolt is charging. And let's talk about this trip and the journey thus far. Obviously, when GM invited us down to LA for the launch of the new Chevrolet Bolt EV to the Bolt EV block party, we felt compelled to take this beautiful first generation Bolt along for the ride because I wanted to see the new shiny Bolt, but I also wanted to see how the original Bolt, this is from the first year of Bolt EV production, handles a long distance trip. And I mean a proper long distance road trip. Now, I am no stranger to long distance trips in the Bolt. I have taken my own Chevrolet Bolt EV. You may remember Artemis, my red Chevrolet Bolt LT. I took that all the way from Portland, Oregon to Austin, Texas and back for fully charged a couple of years ago. I also helped Winter, when he worked at Transport Evolved, move his white Chevrolet Bolt all the way from the East Coast to the US West Coast. So long distance trips by Bolt, I am there, I am ready. But there's been a change since those previous trips. And that change is that there are many more charging stations open to Chevy Bolt EV owners today than there have ever been before. Sure, Electrify America, ChargePoint, EVgo, they are all there. They are all available. And on this trip, We used an EA station, that excellent one with the overhead canopy that I stood at while recording 10. We used a charge point site, which was okay, it worked. We didn't stop at any EVGos because none were suggested to us by a better route planner. But we also used about a half dozen Tesla supercharger sites, if only because they were at sensible places where we needed to charge en route. We didn't go out of our way to use Tesla superchargers, and as many of you know, I personally try not to give Tesla any of my money because Elon Musk is doing some stuff that I very much disagree with, and I would much rather use an alternative charging provider. And I did for other parts of the trip. We stopped at Rivian Adventure Networks multiple times and had very lovely experiences. I stopped at that wonderful charging stop in Yreka, California, and used the charging stations that didn't require any passwords or any smartphone app. You literally just used tap to pay. And that's where the future of EV charging should be. But the important thing here is that when you're doing a long distance road trip in a slow charging Chevrolet Bolt, remember this maxes out at 55 kilowatts. Having more charging station choice, having more places you can stop at, means you can do exactly what we've done on this trip. Drain the battery down as low as you dare, then charge it up until that charge curve starts to taper off. Right now I'm charging at 43 kilowatts and we're about half full. And when you get to that point, you can turn around and go, okay, I'm going to drive another 120 miles down the road, and I'm going to repeat the process. And that actually speeds up your journey very dramatically. The last time I did a long distance road trip in a Bolt, I had to wait until it was 80 or 90% full, and that can be agonizing in a Bolt with a slow charging battery pack. But now we've got all these charging stations and we've got a much wider choice of charging networks. We don't have to worry about that. We just treat this like it has a 120 mile range and drive it 120 miles, stop every 2 hours, charge it back up, only spend 20, 30 minutes charging and get on with our journey. Now, I know there are many people who are sitting at home watching this and scoffing with derision. My car can charge at 350 kilowatts. My car can charge at 120 kilowatts. Good for you. But there are many people for whom the journey into EVs begins with a car like the Chevrolet Bolt EV. As I said at the very beginning of this trip, you can now get one of these on places like Facebook Marketplace or other sites like Auto Trader for as little as $10,000, perhaps even less for a very high mileage one. And for $10,000, you can get a car that, if you live somewhere with enough fast charging stations, can get you from Portland, Oregon to LA and back comfortably. Driving this for what has amounted to 2 days and then having a day and a bit off and then 2 days again, I feel fine. I'm not achy. I don't want to throw the car away and never see it again. The seat's comfortable. It's responsive. It can keep up with traffic on the freeway. It can even accelerate and overtake people if you're so inclined. And I think that's a really revolutionary thing here. Thanks to the expansion of EV charging networks, we can take a car, which when it was new was really cool, and now is a little slow to charge. But we can make use of that charging network. We can make that car perform just as well as many other EVs on the road today. Was it fun seeing the new Chevrolet Bolt EV? You bet. I was so pleased that the car is coming back. I was so pleased that GM's engineering team hasn't really screwed it up. That the new Bolt gives owners much of what they've been asking for. A NACS charging inlet, 150 kilowatts, fast charging capability, and a 65 kilowatt hour LFP battery pack. Those are all phenomenal upgrades while keeping all of the things that made the Bolt, or rather the Bolt EUV. I like the new interior. I like the fact it's more customizable. I like the fact that storage is a very heavily emphasized thing in this new car. But I've also been reminded on this trip how much I love this car. I've been talking to Vi. Vi owns a Bolt too, and we both agree that this, frankly, is one of our favorite General Motors cars. Not just GM EVs, but General Motors cars. GM hit it out the park when it designed this car. And yes, slow charging aside, it still has that problem. But used right now on the used car market, you can pick these up for so little that you can be given an electric adventure that many other marques and vehicles just cannot deliver. So yeah, I'm really glad the Bolt is coming back. I'm really glad I drove down to see it. And I'm really glad I got to experience it in this car because it reminded me just how awesome it is. Add comma, frog pilot, semi-autonomous driver assistance. It's very hard to beat. Thanks for watching this two-part adventure. Thanks to GM for inviting us down to LA and covering our hotels so that we were able to bring you this first-person drive report from LA and also this wonderful adventure on the road. Thanks to all of you for watching. Thanks to Vi for handling the camera and all of the logistics with me for an entire week. It's very difficult to do a 5-day adventure, especially when you're stuck in the same car with the same person for most of it. So, thank you, Vi. And if you want to see us make more videos like this, consider supporting us through Patreon. You can do so from $1.50 a month. The more people who sign up to Patreon and support this channel, the more we can do stuff like this. I have so many videos that I'd love to make that we just financially cannot afford right now. More challenges, more road trip videos. I know you like them. So if you want us to do more, let us know in the down below. And also, please sign up from the equivalent of one fancy coffee a month. If 200 or 300 of you did that, we'll be able to do a lot more of this. Thanks for watching today. You can connect with us on Patreon, Discord, Mastodon, Blue Sky, or through our website. Massive thanks to the amazing folks scrolling by right now. You are the reason we can stay independent and keep making content without corporate influence. Want to see your name listed here too? Support starts at just $1.50 a month, and you can now even gift memberships. And of course, a massive welcome to our newest members: Adam B, Andrew Brown, Tiara Graves, Philip Jackson, Dieter Mulhop, Noor Naif, Annie Onimus, Todd Plenis, Barus Sharati, Andrei Starsky, Ralph Stultz, Richard Teague, Triple A He Lisa Vargi, Vicky Morales, Magpie Motors, and Travis Whitman. Thank you for joining up to support the channel. At this particular time in history when everyone's feeling the pinch, we are so grateful that you've joined the team, and that allows us to keep making great content. If you'd like to join them, you'll find our Patreon link below, or you can sign up via YouTube. If you're signing up for Patreon though, please go to the Patreon website. Do not use the Apple or Google app, since both take a big cut that hurts your wallet and reduces the income we receive. Prefer a one-off contribution? We've got Ko-fi, Bitcoin, a PO box, our swag store, and even an Amazon affiliate link, all great ways to make sure your money helps us. We post new videos every few days on the main channel, plus extras over on TE Take 2. And since YouTube comments, while open, aren't safe for us, the best way to chat with the team is through Patreon, Mastodon, Blue Sky, or our website, or in fact, our Discord chat. If you want more, the mighty algorithm thinks you'll like this video, but we'd love you to check out this one instead. Be awesome, be kind, be intentional, and never forget to resist. Keep evolving!